Did René Descartes really put the horse before Descartes? Was Francis Bacon really known to bring home the bacon? Did an apple really fall on Newton's head, or that of his brother Fig? These and other questions will be answered right after this. I'm Professor Jerome Arkenberg, and I've been teaching a wide variety of history courses at colleges across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the problem with medieval science, why Christian churches try to stop the advance of science, how Bacon and Descartes both invented modern science, how a Polish priest named Copernicus began the scientific revolution, and how the Enlightenment made a key discovery: happiness. At the end, I'll have the wrap-up quote on this video. But first, make sure to click like, share, and subscribe, and that little bell thingy so I can continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. At the heart of the scientific revolution lay a questioning of authority, which, if Protestant and Catholic clergy had had their way, would have suppressed science as a danger to faith, just as it was suppressed in China, India, and the Islamic world. For science, based on critical doubt, greatly alarmed traditional defenders of Christianity, Catholic and Protestant alike, who saw that the stakes were not only science's conclusions, but science's method. Especially critical as Catholics and Protestants both taught that truth was declared by authority, namely themselves. But due to the Papal Revolution and the Reformation, which kept Europe both fragmented religiously and politically, science, immensely aided by the patronage and tolerance of rulers who saw in it new ways to increase their power, economically or militarily, succeeded, whether their clergy liked it or not. Now, medieval science, and here is the old periodic table for medieval science with its 4 elements. Anyway, medieval science had 2 critical limits. 1, it could provide very little knowledge of practical use. 2, it rested on assumptions inherited from the Greeks and Romans, especially Aristotle, Galen, Euclid, Archimedes, Vitruvius, and Claudius Ptolemaeus. Testing was impossible, in part because the means of testing was not understood, in part because the desire to test did not exist. This was science, based solely on theory, not observation and experiment. Ideas inherited from the Church Fathers made things worse. Since both faith and reason were gifts from God, neither could ever contradict each other. Meaning, the sole purpose of reason was only to expound and explain revelation, not to discover new principles. As St. Augustine said, "I believe that I may understand." In other words, reason could never come up with any new discovery, any new interpretation that might contradict anything based on faith, including the Bible. So it can never be, I understand that I may believe. That was clearly wrong, heretical, and blasphemous. Now, the first crack in this position comes with Peter Abelard, who died in 1142, more famous today for his torrid love affair with Heloise, as seen here. But Abelard really did much more. He argued that God intended reason as a tool to both understand and discover new things. As he put it, quote, "Our respect for authority should not stand in the way of an effort to come at the truth. For questioning is the first key to wisdom. Through doubting, we come to inquiry, and through inquiry, we perceive the truth." Unquote. In the 13th century, scholasticism built on Abelard's work, led by Albertus Magnus, Thomas Aquinas, and others who used authority in the form of scripture, patristic commentary, Greco-Roman philosophy, and, above all, Aristotelian logic to prove that it was possible to both reconcile and synthesize reason with revelation. The Renaissance, unfortunately, did not actually contribute much of anything to this, nor to medieval science. I should say, modern science. It was simply a natural evolution of medieval trends that first appeared in late medieval Italy, all stemming from the 12th century Renaissance. Even innovations in painting, sculpture, music, drama, architecture, poetry, and literature built upon medieval forms. The only significant change was an emphasis upon the solution of practical problems in the arts and mechanical crafts. The scientific revolution per se began with inquiries into the relationship of Earth, Sun, and planets. And from a natural world, once seen with awe as evidence of God's mysterious ways, first a literate elite, then eventually everyone else in the West, made the great leap to a conscious search to manipulate nature for man's benefit. In Shakespeare's time, at the start of the 17th century, educated people thought that comets were portents sent by God. But a mere 60 years later, Isaac Newton and Edmund Halley had calculated the orbits of certain comets and found that they were as obedient as the planets to the law of gravity. By 1700, the mental outlook of the educated was completely modern. In 1600, except among a very few, it was still quite medieval. One contributing factor to the acceptance of science, one of many, was the role of books and learned societies, along with the speed of scientific advances. And in this, the rapid diffusion of knowledge made possible by the printing press was very important. Not only were scientific books published and widely read, but also journals by a variety of learned societies, such as the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, which, by the way, is still in print and still being published every year. But these journals allowed rapid diffusion of cutting-edge advances. Another factor was the association of science with the social prestige of the gentleman, the upper classes. This also proved critical, for in Europe, unlike China, India, or Islam, the upper classes actively patronized and themselves engaged in scientific research. And though few made any real scientific contributions, they gave these learned bodies the indefinable and important weight of their standing and respectability. The work of Sir Francis Bacon, who was born in 1561 and died in 1626, seen here, who was an observant Anglican. He was not an atheist, he was not an agnostic, a fervent member of the Church of England, was of enormous influence in the struggle to free philosophy and science from the fetters of theology, as it had been through the Middle Ages. For while faith was fine for theology, philosophy and science, he said, should depend solely on reason. Bacon did more than anyone to promote the use of scientific inductive reasoning. That experience, leading from the observation of particulars to universal laws, brought man knowledge and power. In the next generation, René Descartes, seen here, born in 1596 and died in 1650, began by doubting everything that he could manage to doubt, and realized there is only one thing one cannot doubt: self-existence. So, one can doubt having a body, as it may be an illusion, but thinking is different. For cogito ergo sum, or translated, I think, therefore I am. If one ceased to think, there would be no self-evidence of self-existence. So, doubt everything. Don't take anybody's authoritative word as the gospel truth. Doubt it. They may be correct, but they may well be incorrect. Now, what set it all into motion is that of the Polish priest Nicholas Copernicus, who was born in 1473 and died in 1543. He came to believe that the sun, rather than the earth, was at the center of the cosmos. Also, that the earth has a twofold motion, both diurnal and annual, but fear of censure kept him from publishing his findings during his lifetime. Copernicus' observation of the odd rotation of Mars, which at times seems to move backwards, as seen here. Watch this as the Earth, it passes by. Now suddenly it seems that Mars is moving backward. It's an optical illusion. This could only be explained by a heliocentric model of the cosmos. As in, otherwise, if the Earth was at the center and the sun revolves around it, how do you explain for the awkwardness of Mars going backward? It would have to go in this weird little loop like this, which, if the circle was the perfection of movement, and he believed it was, this is clearly not God's intention. Why would God screw it up so badly? Still, this was a brilliant guess, as he had no means of testing his theory. Still, he dethroned the earth and man from their preeminent status. We are not the center of the universe, despite what Aristotle, Ptolemy, and the Bible said. Tycho Brahe, seen here, who was born in 1546 and died in 1601, was a Danish nobleman. And he spent much of his life trying to disprove Copernicus and his heliocentric theory wrong. But unfortunately, by making years of painstaking astronomical observation using only the naked eye, he was the first to provide true scientific data to support the heliocentric Copernican theory. I guess the joke was on him. The German Johannes Kepler, seen here, born in 1571 and died in 1630, a contemporary of both Descartes and Bacon. Kepler made careful astronomical observations in pursuit of astrological knowledge. He built on Brahe's work and further confirmed the Copernican system. Then we get to Galileo Galilei, seen here. Born in 1564, died in 1642, not a contemporary of either Descartes or Bacon. Galileo was professor of physics and military engineering at the University of Padua. He seems to have hit upon the idea of the telescope by chance, and with it, the Copernican conception of the cosmos was made visible to all, finally shattering the pre-Copernican geocentric framework. Even though Galileo came to his conclusions through systematic experiment based upon sound mathematics, his work produced an uproar. He was, after many warnings, tried by the Inquisition and condemned, forced to recant, and prohibited from use of his telescopes. He lived the rest of his life under house arrest. For Isaac Newton, seen here, born the same year that Galileo died, 1642, and lived until 1727, achieved the final and complete triumph for which Copernicus, Brahe, Kepler, Bacon, Descartes, and Galileo had prepared the way. He proved through mathematical certainty that all movements of matter were determined by physical laws which were both knowable and measurable. Now, besides the revolutionary work done in astronomy and physics in the 17th century, and here, of course, is where Newton made many of his discoveries, the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, notable advances occurred in other fields too. Harvey, for example, discovered the circulation of blood and the heart's movement. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, seen here, invented the microscope. This is his original. And when he looked through it, discovered spermatozoa, bacteria, and microcellular organisms. Then the Englishman Robert Hooke improved the microscope, seen here, and made even more discoveries. Cavendish discovered hydrogen. Scheele discovered oxygen. Rutherford discovered nitrogen. And Robert Boyle, seen here, discovered the properties of gases. In mathematics, Napier invented logarithms, Napier right here. Descartes, as mentioned before, invented coordinate geometry. Newton, again mentioned before, along with Gottfried Leibniz, working separately, two geniuses, invented differential and integral calculus, and Bernoulli, nice beard, discovered both the theory of probability and hydrodynamics. In terms of light, Snellius discovered the reflection of light, Grimaldi the diffraction of light, Römer the speed of light, Bradley the aberration of light, and Christian Huygens, seen here with his really fabulous hairstyle, discovered the wave theory of light. Gilbert, here on the left, discovered the properties of magnetism, and Count Galvani, seen here on the right, galvanized contact electricity. New instruments, tools, and technical processes made many of these advances possible. As mentioned aforesaid, the microscope and telescope, but also the barometer, the pendulum clock, the thermometer, the adding machine, the calculator, the marine clock, the air pump, and many, many more. By the 18th century, the term Enlightenment characterized the thinking which distinguished men felt their own age from what had gone before, a letting in of light upon the dark, and a liberation from authority. The Enlightenment applied scientific, critical doubt to other fields, such as philosophy, history, economics, and political theory, leading to radical ideas about the place of man and the state. Knowledge now had to be scientific by bringing a wide range of naturally occurring phenomena within the understanding of a few fixed scientific laws. And the wider the range of phenomena and the fewer the laws, the better the understanding. The key thing about the Enlightenment, the key thing to remember is the Enlightenment was optimistic. The world was getting better and better. Yes, this attitude was satirized by Voltaire in his work Candide But nonetheless, that was the view. As reason and knowledge took the place of ignorance, intolerance, and parochialism, allowing for the unimpeded operation of the laws of nature, which would promote societal reform in the interests of all, life would get better. As Jean d'Alembert, seen here on the left, and the Marquis de Condorcet, seen here on the right, said. Now, besides the Enlightenment being optimistic, the Enlightenment made one truly revolutionary new discovery. Follow. Starting with St. Augustine, Europeans believed that life was simply one long, hard test, which determined where you would spend the afterlife, in heaven or hell. So, there was no point in trying to improve the world, as it was what it was, all part of God's great design. So there was no point in trying to make it better, and it was not the lot of humans to be happy, not in this life, as true happiness could only be found in union with God in heaven. So the possibility that humanity should and could be happy on earth was the key discovery, or perhaps invention, of the Enlightenment, along with the idea that happiness could be achieved through the use of reason, both of which had profound political implications. The wrap-up quote from René Descartes in 1637. Quote, "What is there, then, that can be esteemed true? Perhaps this only, that there is absolutely nothing certain. Doubtless, then, I exist, since I am deceived. And let him deceive me as he may, he can never bring it about that I am nothing, so long as I shall be conscious that I am something. So that it must, in fine, be maintained, all things being maturely and carefully considered, that this proposition, cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am, is necessarily true each time it is expressed by me, or conceived in my mind." Let me know what you think of this quote in the comments section below. Also, what you liked about this video and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos on the Middle Ages and on modern times. And click on that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me, description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.